morning and welcome to Being Black and Craft, where we don't apologize for recognizing our influence on craft beer. This is Angie, the undeniable vixen, your host. We have a great guest this evening. Please excuse me as I rush. I am trying to not look like I'm sweating so hard. I just finished cycle class, so I feel like I'm just still pouring sweat. I'm just rushing in to come and do the podcast, but I'm trying to do time management. But without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into beer news. So, let's see. I've got a couple of things going on here. First off, friends of the show, NTX Beer and Tony, which are part of Modern Brews and Beats, they are doing a podcast meetup and bottle share in Moulton, Arkansas at Point Remove Brewing. So if you're up that way in Arkansas on Saturday, September 27th between 2 and 5, make sure that you check them out. And let's see, I was thinking that's where Tony is from, and I always wanted to know how he was saying Morton, but I know it was just a long word. But Point Remove is one of the breweries that he really, really likes down there in Arkansas, so I know they're going to have a great time doing that. Then, as I was scrolling, looking through IG, minding my business, loving Jesus like I do, I saw Montclair Brewing, and they have something new. Let me see. It is called Jubilee, and it is a Jubilee Red Ale. This is a once-a-year seasonal release that is a smooth red wheat ale brewed with hibiscus flowers, balanced with a touch of lactose. And I know how people go with lactose, so either you're in or you're not. I'm an in person for that crisp, smooth, and slightly tart touch. So if you're in the Montclair, New Jersey area, stop by for Montclair Brewing and pick up a can or a glass or two while you're there. Then as I was on Facebook scrolling and minding my business, loving Jesus like I do, I also saw Benny, and I was looking at her post, and it just said, sitting in gratitude, quiet moments as an entrepreneur are rare, but they exist when you take 1 second to breathe, take 1 minute to smile, take the opportunity to toast yourself. Having a tap room is fucking awesome. Cheers to me, Crowns and Hops. So congratulations to Benny and Teo, as they're part, I guess they're in the same area or in the same housing area as Creature Comforts, and they're hanging out doing that. And I don't know how long it's been. It seems like it's been a minute, maybe a couple of months, or maybe even longer, and I just didn't realize that was what was going on there. So that's really great to know that that's happening for them. Long time coming. So congratulations to Crowns and Hops. Then Oak Park has two things going on. First of all, they have their home brew, which they've been doing yearly. So this is a workshop, a day of home brewing on the Oak Park patio with brewmasters Jeff and Raj. And then for that $150, you get hands-on guidance, lunch, beer tasting, and an official brew crew t-shirt, which is cool. But the other aspect that I was thinking of, where did it go? When I flipped too many pages. So the other aspect I was thinking of is People's Beer Fest in Oakland. If you haven't been to People's Beer Festival, it's something that you'd want to check out. It's very niche as far as the different breweries that are coming from that little California area. Where you're able to have conversations with people, you can kind of mill around. You're not over inundated with crowds. It's more of an intimate setting. To me, it was more intimate, but still giving you that festival kind of feel, especially with the concert at the end. So it's been great. The concert at the end is always one of the highlights, but it's well rounded. They have educational classes. Um, then they have the beer festivals, and they have the brewers brunch. Um, and they have a bottle share. That's another thing that they're going to be doing, a bottle share. That's something new. You know what? I don't think it's new. It's my flight didn't. I missed the bottle share. That's what happened. So if you're in the area, in Sacramento, make sure that you check out this People's Beer Festival. So they have early bird tickets, and the early bird tickets are until July 31st. And I'm saying Sacramento and Oakland because I went to both places, and my brain just froze on where they actually are. But it's Oak Park Brewery. If you go to their IG, you'll find out the actual city that they're in California. But they're really resilient because People's Beer Festival is about representation, culture, and community. Proceeds support the National Black Brewers Association, and every part of the festival is designed to uplift underrepresented voices in craft beer. And I think I'm going to drive myself nuts if I don't find out where they are, because my brain is saying one thing. And Sacramento, I was right, Sacramento. So they're in Sacramento, and it's really great. If you haven't done it, make sure you do it, because October 10th is, of course, National Black Brewers Day. This is where you get see some of the pioneering aspects of where we've come and where we're going. So make sure that you check that out. And one last thing, because I went too far. So we have some MJF awardees. So let me talk about Sarah. Sarah won a scholarship in brewing. So Sarah Glenn has a love for craft beer that started out with visiting the brewery Amagang. Learning about traditional Belgian styles prompted her to apply for a bartending job at a new brewery in her hometown of Syracuse, New York. Along with this journey, she's decided to pursue beer as a career with the goal of becoming a brewer. Sarah hopes to make a positive change within the industry by being a mentor to other women who are interested in joining or already working in the industry. So she has the University of Florida Brewing Arts Certificate. That's what she was able to win. And then we also have Jamar. I'm probably going to say his last name incorrectly. Julian and Honeysuckle. So he won a scholarship for Sake Brewer Association of North America Advanced Sake Brewer Certificate course in Nagata University. So Jamar is multifaceted in fermentation experts for over a decade of experience in the restaurant industry. He currently serves as a director of fermentation as a newly opened Honeysuckle restaurant, formerly a James Beard nominated Honeysuckle Provisions. He is also the founder and brewmaster of Jam Brew Ferments, a craft fermented company dedicated to thoughtful small batch products. His deep knowledge in fermentation is rooted in a lifelong passion for food and beverage, shaped by years of professional restaurants and kitchen experience and experimentation. His journey in the Philadelphia restaurant scene began at a Japanese izakaya, a formative experience that sparked a lasting connection to Japanese culture, foodways, and fermentation practices. So congratulations. There were several, but these are the two that I wanted to make sure that I highlighted. And I think I had one last thing, and I think I put it in. Yeah, that's what happened. I put it in the outro. We're gearing up. It's pretty much Barrel and Float is going to be here. And so one of the things that they're going to be doing, which is kind of cool, they're going to be beer and float, or barrel and float, something like that. So they're going to do a thing where they are going to be on the Gateway Clipper in the inaugural barrel and float. Yeah. Marvel at Steel City from the Three Rivers with an open bar curated by Barrel and Float. So they're going to have a DJ. They're going to have Nashville, which I absolutely adore that band. I adore the lead singer. She's so amazing. So they're going to have free booze from TLC Libations, which she does crafted cocktails, delicious. War Cloud Brewing, Rhythm Brewing, Dope Cider and Wine, Wendy Bridges Brew, Altered Genius, and Vellum Fermentation on August 7th. Boarding at 6 o'clock and setting sail from 7 to 10. So you can enjoy music, enjoy the DJ, be on the boat, dance a little bit, and have some crafted drinks. What? Who else? Who else could do that? So that really is all my needs. Ooh, I was getting a little choked. So let me go ahead and bring up my guest. Hello, Carl. How are you?
Hey, Angie, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, 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 good. So, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I'm so tongue tied. So, just
You were
want to
just
get.
speaking a lot. Yeah, take. I saw what
I
happened.
was, I was trying to trying to take a sip. So I'm gonna hurry up and get you to talking so I can take a sip. Um, so this is another episode of Being Black and Craft. So we wanted to take it back to Houston, Houston, Texas. I'm a Texas-born person, so of course my heart is always in Texas. So
Sure.
want to chop it up with you and talk to you because you are the founder of the For the Culture Brewing, the first Black-owned brewery in Houston. Its brews are bold, vision is unapologetic, and everything that is rooted is uplifting the culture. So we're excited to hear about more about your journey. So let me also ask you, going back to our clubhouse days, are you drinking anything? I know you just said you just got home, so I don't know if you had a chance to.
I did. It's just water, but I just shameless plugs. I'm like I did bring a couple of cans of some of the stuff that we
Okay,
have
yeah.
handy. This is our working girl, which is a Belgian blonde that we crafted, and this one is happens to be a Kolsch that we call Kolsch enough,
Okay.
or but both the Belgian style is getting close to imperial, but Belgians love their candy sugar, so it kind of hit a little bit of the notes, but it came out really really excellent. Nice sweetness from the candy sugar on the front end, but it still drinks rather crisp and light on the back,
Mm-hmm.
even at 6.8%. So it kind of hit the notes. Not as strong, fruity esters, although they're there. They're just subtle, a little bit more subtle on this one, and it's not as phenolic as you might get with like a Tripel or Quadrupel, something a little bit stronger, like
Mm-hmm.
our Belgian Strong Golden Grill. That one, you definitely feel it. It's almost 10%. And then
Oh
the
my.
Colts, that was something that we crafted because we realized that in the craft brew game, at the moment, it's not all about how many hazies you have. It's not all necessarily all about how many stouts, pastry stouts that you have. That paradigm for us anyway seems to be shifting slightly. And so a lot of what we really move are lagers, pilsners, Kolsch's, red ales, things along those. It seems like a lot of consumers really are into light and refreshing right now, even though we do have a varied assortment of IPAs as well as stouts. None at the moment, no stouts at the moment, because we kept getting it's hot, it's hot, it's hot, even though we think it's stout season year round. But who are
Right.
we? But we're once the fall kind of hits and the weather, we have a few like our Imperial Milk Stout, Voodoo Kitty, Erica Badu and themed, if you can imagine where we're going with that. And then
Yep. Yep.
we
Yep.
have
Yep.
we have a dry Irish stout as well as a porter that's occasionally up, and we'll have some new things
Yeah.
as well.
You definitely, I mean, when I go into a brewery, I'm looking for a story. I'm looking for a story of your brew, of what you brew. And so I'm going to go, not necessarily. the heaviest thing at right out the gate. I want to see your craftsmanship. So I'm gonna ask for your heft. I'm gonna ask for your Kolsch. I'm gonna ask for your lager, and then I'm gonna say, okay, at by the time that I'm tasting those, if I'm doing a flight, especially, then I'm gonna go to those things that are gonna be a little bit more complex. I was like, okay, if you can do the things that are like tricycle, okay, I know you've taken the wheels off and you got the bike going. You got the 10 speed is at the end. So
For sure.
that's really how I like to drink, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. So it's good that you are listening to your consumers and seeing, hey, what would be the use of use? Well, I want stouts, but my consumers don't want stouts. So
Absolutely.
there'd
It
be
it it has been, eye opening, to say the least, because in October it'll make 2 years for us, which is absolutely, flown by. Um, but I think that noticing some of those trends and some of those preferences that people have, it's far and away what we believed when we first opened our doors. Admittedly, it's like we've always tried our best to fashion a very broad and robust, tap wall. We typically have 13 to 14 different beers on tap,
okay.
and as mentioned, those range from, I guess we would say, the plain Jane, such as the Kolsch's and the rice lagers, the ale, red ale, stuff like that. But we tend to keep what might be considered exotic items as well. At one point, we had a Gratzer, which is a smoked beer on tap. We have
Mm-hmm.
a Thai lemon basil blonde that we crafted that has been in more or less steady rotation since we've been open. We'll keep a couple of Belgians, as well as a varied assortment of IPAs, because we're trying our best to make sure that we capture not only the novice craft beer drinker but also the most experienced. So we want to have a little bit of something. So you may not be able to run the whole board with your favorite types of beer, but hopefully to be able to find where someone can say, I have a few things that I really really love, and come back for those.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back a little bit for people who may be listening right now live or may be listening later on. What sparked the idea for the culture brewing? What made you say, I think that I just want to just get into this? This seems, this wild, crazy dream of being a owner in
Crazy. I believe, Andrew, I believe for us it was the ownership of For The Culture, by and large, were non-beer drinkers. Uh, Out of the four of us, three of us could not stand beer in any shape or form, and I think that comes from a history of drinking fermented products that were made for mass consumption. Uh,
Mhm.
when you're in college or wherever, and you're being offered, the Natty Lights, the Lone Stars, the Budweisers, well, people such as ourselves, we've come to learn that those aren't particularly products that are made for enjoyment as much as just being able to mass consume. It's not that it's bad per se, because I tell people, if you're in Texas or if you're in Timbuktu, if you go open a beer of one of those brands, it's going to taste the same. So they're doing what they want to do, and they're doing it to style. And they're doing it right. It's just that's
Mhm.
what they're intending. Whereas for us, our as someone who was not into beer, probably culturally, we did not. In my household, beer was just not a thing. You might see it at the picnic, you might see it at the family reunion, but those were a very specific set of uncles that were
Yes.
drinking those. Most everyone else, that was not on the table. And so I didn't get the opportunity to actually appreciate beer until probably, well, until the early 2010s, when a good friend of mine was sort of harassing me in a loving way that, hey, you need to try some beer, you need to try some beer. And he finally convinced me to try an Allagash White.
Mm.
And I was shocked, because it was actually flavorful. it matched well with the pizza that we were eating. It was, I don't know what it, I still can't explain it, but for my first time actually enjoying beer, it just the white with the pepperoni pizza, the brick oven pepperoni pizza, it felt like everything was enhancing each other. So I was like, well, this actually isn't so bad. And so when I moved back to Houston, he told me, he said, Carl, I want you to go to the store. I want you to try to find this Unibrew Le Fin du Monde, which is a Belgian Tripel for those who may be unfamiliar.
Mm.
Well, I got it. I'm imbibing, and I get about halfway through the bottle, and whatever was on TV, I was starting to laugh a lot harder than was warranted.
I bet you would.
And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, I'm only drinking about half of this bottle, but I learned I probably should have eaten something along with it. So I called him up. I'm like, hey, Ike, man, what did you give me? He's like, of course, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, you told me to get the stuff called Le Fin du Monde. And I'm like, this isn't beer, man. Like, I've only had half the bottle, but I'm really, really feeling it right now. Of course, he laughs and he's like, yeah, but you got to understand that particular beer that you're drinking is like 9%. And of course, I'm still thinking in terms of distilled spirits. I'm like, 9%, that shouldn't be, like, we drink 40 proof. At
Right.
times in college, we were drinking Everclear and mixing it so we could get there without spending a lot of money. I'm like, this shouldn't be doing anything. And he said, no, that's in beer. And he kind of broke it down that, it's a larger volume that you're drinking. So the percentage, of course, you're feeling a little bit more. And that was the starting point. It was like fire was lit under us. I'm calling up all my friends, other owners, boy Jonathan, my boy Devon. I'm like, hey, y'all, you got to try this. Please try this. You got to go check this out. This is, they
Yes.
go try it out, and the next thing you know, they love it. And over the years, that led us to a place where we started to try our hand at home brewing. And after a few years of home brewing, we were sort of in a place where our friends kept gassing us up that you make good stuff, you make good stuff, you should try this, you should try that. And of course, at the time, the craft beer world was still firmly on fire. So it just felt like a really good thing, a really good opportunity if we were able to get into it. And so it took us about 7 years,
Hmm.
from idea to actual fruition. But, we made it, and, we're rocking and rolling.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I can just I can just imagine, but that's a really great gateway beer, Allagash. That was really great because some
It
people
was
like,
perfect.
yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. That's really good. So okay, so opening a brewery is one thing, but opening with one with cultural missions is another. What are some challenges have you had with during the first year, um, and how were you able to push through them?
That is a fantastic question. I definitely think first being, I live in Texas, and unfortunately, at the times, everything is supercharged. If you understand what I'm getting at, and basically, anything that you do, it's like there has to be somebody right, somebody wrong, or somebody, bumping
Mm-hmm.
heads in an adversarial sense. And so, of course, regardless of how we present ourselves, which we're very proud to be who we are, but regardless of what we do or say, you almost inevitably get uh, the lovely folks that just have something to say about it. When we do things on TV, we do things in print. Um, that was actually where I learned to now look at the comments, because you will see, silly
Mm.
stuff like, I didn't know Houston had a segregated brewery. I didn't know you got to be, this to drink. And of course, it's laughable to us because people who may be aware, we are actually two breweries under one roof. So collectively, we're Craft Culture Exchange, but it's Authentic Brewing. That's a woman-owned brewery, and they are definitely a lot less melanated than we are. And then you have For The Culture. So, people are saying these things, and it's like, well, our business partners are, very much Caucasian, and Yes, we're, black and brown, but where are you getting this notion from other than, either
Mhm.
being bots or just being straight up hateful people? So that has been a challenge because our goal is to educate, excite, entice everybody about the joys of craft beer. We just happen to be black and brown, of
Right.
course. But for them, some people, I've heard, people like, well, I can't go to their brewery and, just yada, yada, yada. It's a complete
Mhm.
unfortunate mess. But that is definitely a challenge. The second challenge is from when we got started, we were just coming out of COVID. Then COVID hit, then there was supply chain issues coupled with inflation. And now it's the big T word, tariffs, you know.
Mhm.
And we've been fortunate that, our suppliers have been, for the most part, they've been, for the first year, there a lot of them like we'll absorb some of these costs so that we don't necessarily just pass them down directly just yet. But naturally, this is probably going to continue, indefinitely, at least until the end of, whatever, this administration. Well,
Right.
as a small business, it's extremely frustrating when you don't necessarily know how to plan because where you try to forecast where your prices will be, what you need to cover this, cover that, and then someone just wakes up and it's like, well, actually, we're going to go up on that 30%. We're going to go up on this 50%, or whatever the percentage. It's a drastic change, and as you're getting started and trying to create more brand awareness and uh, visibility, and you're like, hey, man, again, we're a small business. Yeah, we pay our bills. It's not a sad story, but it's like you can see how quickly just small change can change a cost here, change a cost there, and now all of a sudden you are in a bad spot because you're struggling to figure out how can you compensate when that's not necessarily what you see coming in the door. And I think additionally, what we've seen, speaking to a lot of the brewers here, in the Houston area that you're familiar with everything going on, consumers are spending a lot less now. And when people, put out the reports and news articles about, people are drinking less craft beer, less alcohol, etc., there may be an aspect of that I'm not arguing. However, from a practical standpoint and what it feels like you see just on a day-to-day basis, when you talk with your friends, your family, associates, it's just a lot of people aren't spending their discretionary income at the same rate because they don't know what's happening either because there's so much confusion. And speaking to someone that has is blessed to have a family with two small kids,
Yes.
I see what's happened to daycare. I see what's happened to the grocery bill, and we're very fortunate that we're okay. And I recognize that that's a privilege, but I recognize there are some people that don't have that luxury. And so if I'm asking you to come to my establishment, hang out for a little bit, spend $20 to $30 hopefully or somewhere in that range, I realize that can be asking a lot, of someone who may not have it in the same vein at the moment. And so that's probably the third challenge that we see ourselves facing. And baking in that, just again, like the things that you see going up, electricity, it doubled. Our rate doubled, and it's still cheaper
Mhm.
than some of the things out there, but it doubled. So now you're paying more there, or utilities, the water, similar story. And so I think sometimes these are the things that for people who are looking to open businesses like ours, it's very easy to show just the glitz and the glam, and that's fantastic. The highs are amazing, but sometimes you just realize that there are other aspects that sometimes get glossed over. And so I'm just saying it not to discourage anyone, but just giving more information and more context and more perspective to make sure you're thinking about those things because naturally that's not something that we were considering admittedly just in our first couple of years. We were like, no, we'll be fine indefinitely. But then, like I said, things changed
Mhm.
at the beginning of the year and they changed fast. And then all of a sudden things that we were, kind of counting on to not go up so significantly, well, it did. So, we pivot and we, do what we got to do.
Well, I mean, we definitely. I think it would be a disservice for us to have this conversation about being black and craft without people knowing everything, all the aspects of the highs and the lows,
Absolutely.
and being transparent. So I appreciate you being transparent and letting people know these things are, as I guess boots on the ground, as far as like knowing what is happening on the day to day, and to hearing that as far as like news articles. Oh, it's 20% today, and there's like it's 80%, and it's like then the next day it's zero, and no one
Right.
knows what what how to pivot. And so but being resilient, um, at as a people, we're able to try to maintain or try to steady the course as much as possible and not try to panic.
100%.
Yeah, so I definitely understand that. I definitely understand that. So I know you talked about your beers, but I'm just because you said 13 or 14. 13.
Typically, yes. That's about what's on tap at any given time.
If I came in to the brewery and I only have time for one drink, what would you give me?
Well, first, I would ask a few questions. I would be like, are you more of a malty lady, or a hoppy lady, or are you somewhere in between, or more exotic, tickles your fancy?
I like malty bready beers. I want to eat my beer. I like bread.
Malty bready. So with that in mind, then I would keep it on the lighter side. Uh, probably the probably the maltiest of what we have on that right now would probably be our Kolsch. Uh, the lager and the pilsner, those are crisp and clean. Of course, the pilsner with a little more hoppiness because the style pilsner is a little bit more hoppy than just a straight up lager. But thinking through it, the Kolsch would probably be the one. I think that would hit the notes, and it's only 6%, and so it would be something that you could enjoy that one, leave, and not feel a little woozy after.
Okay, okay, okay. Now I was looking, stalking your IG, and I saw you have quite frequently events at your establishment. What's been some of the highlighted events that you've had within the last couple of years that you was like, wow, this was really great?
You know, if I may, before I get to that part, if I may give a caveat, I'll say that as part of that, the disclosure aspect, uh, we are blessed that we happen to have a warehouse space. I know it doesn't have any air conditioning, y'all, but whew, that that bill for the AC, if you would have saw it, I think y'all would understand. We're just not there yet. We're taking baby steps. However, we have a lot of space in our warehouse area, and it's allowed
Mhm.
us to pivot in a very unique way during these times. Speaking to the event, we often will joke that for the most part we're an event center masquerading as a brewery. Because since we have the space, uh, people love to have grunge concerts there, anime meetups, uh,
Mm.
game watching, game watching parties, uh, trying to tap into our culture. Uh, we'll have markets that you know feature and center black creatives, uh, black entrepreneurs. Uh, Probably can't see it from the pictures on the IG at the moment, but we have a local artist. He sold several $100s worth of paintings from just putting them on the wall and having interested individuals come to show. Probably, if I'm thinking about probably the most interesting was when we had a body paint event, and so there were several
Mm.
body paint artists. And if granted, I didn't know what to expect. I'm glad we didn't have a lot of kids traffic that day because it was done tastefully. But
Yes,
admittedly, I wasn't thinking that at
you
the end of
wasn't
the
ready.
day. No, no, we weren't. Uh, Even though the lady that does it, Renetta, she's an amazing artist, but just wasn't expecting it. But in hindsight, it's like, okay, how do I do this where we can honor the art, but I recognize, if a kid comes up, it's like, "Ooh, daddy, mommy, look," and we don't want that necessarily if it's during normal business hours. But
True.
yeah, we've been fortunate to have so many things. I don't know how or why, but we're so grateful. We really become like a spot, believe it or not, for grunge concerts.
Hmm.
They love to come set up, uh, rock out for a couple of hours, and they always, it's an extreme amount of support, which we appreciate. And because our goal is to be a part of the community, not just in the community, the types of
Yes.
things that we do, we're not looking to get rich off the patrons in that way. We just want to say, hey, come support us at the bar, show us love there. We're happy, and almost
Mm-hmm.
every time, without question, uh, the promoters come. They bring in droves of people between the soft drinks we offer, the snacks, or if we got a food truck that day, as well as the beer and cider that's purchased. They always
Mm-hmm.
show us a lot of love, and that's been something that we've tried to keep on track and keep consistent. Because right now it is. It's tumultuous times. It's not like necessarily everybody and their mama out like it used to be. It's a little bit more selective. So doing things like that manages to bring in a significant amount of business for us in a way that also allows those community members to build their brands and kind of just keep paying it forward, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, it always looks like y'all are having an amazing time. All smiles. I think I've seen like some pictures of games. What it was a viewing, watch party.
Yeah.
Now I'm not into sports. I don't do sports as much. So, but uh, when it's a collective of people and just like being around, folks that are really enjoying it and talking crap, I can be in the corner like, laughing. So and drinking my beer and like, hey, hey, whoever wins, they win. That's all to it. But that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
like last Friday we had a game night for like a theme for adults, and so you're talking about musical chairs, uh, doing things like trying to pick up certain objects with chopsticks, card games, dominoes, just things that us as more mature, seasoned adults, 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s, etc. Because after a certain age, like they all run together. So
yeah.
we offered that as an opportunity to come hang out, have a good time, be safe. Uh, we've been blessed. We've never had any issues to date. Knock on wood. And so those are the types of things that we do. And like I said, we're fortunate that unlike some tap rooms, it's not just limited to just like a few hundred square feet. Come in, drink, sit at the bar, maybe leave. We actually are we're afforded the space to allow for things like this to happen. We're trying to see about setting up wrestling events, in the back where they come set up the ring and you know you sit
Okay.
around the ring, enjoy the wrestling, for a little bit. Just things that you try to
Woo.
be creative because you don't want to just sit around and just say, well, woe is me. What's happening? Businesses aren't moving as fast as they did. Like when you first open or
Mhm.
something like that. It's like, okay, well, what can we do just to make sure that we're thinking outside the box so that we can bring in, crowds in different ways, as well as provide an additional value. So even if most of it's like, well, yeah, I just wanted a beer, but oh goodness, I can get a beer and get a show, uh, get a comedy show, get a concert. That's the types of things that we're trying to do to make sure that we stay viable in this space,
That's
along
so
with making good beer, of course. That's first, but
that's really important. We had a bottle share yesterday, and we were talking about a brewery that's near me, and it's like the beer is getting there. It's a big space. This gentleman, he's basically put his retirement money into the space. Huge. It's beautiful, but when we go, we've gone several times. It's woo, echo, 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 echo,
yeah,
echo.
for sure.
Nobody in there. And it was like, have a book club. And we're just thinking of all these, I'm listening to all different variations of things that you have. And we were thinking about different things like have a book club, have anime, let people. do anything in your space. Do bingo night.
Absolutely.
Because they even have a kitchen. So it's just like,
Oh, they fancy, fancy.
yeah, I mean, it's when I tell you this man, he had money and he poured it all into this, and just to be the only, three people, well, no, five people in there, and it's the two, we're the two patrons, the rest of it's
Hmm.
staff. It's like it makes me want to cry, because I mean I would hate for them to close, because basically they're on, because I know that you're like in the warehouse district, so basically
Yeah.
in the same vein, the tollway is right here, and on the other side, all kinds of stuff going on, all kinds of stuff going on, apartments, food stuff, but on this side, nothing. So you
Yeah.
have to know that it's there. So it's just
Right.
like, how, because where y'all are tucked, how did y'all initially get people to say, hey, we're here?
We would, uh, and we do. There's just the city. City likes to take them up. We'll have times. We'll get some little signs made. We'll stick them in at the corner of
Mhm.
the intersection of where we are. Brewery here, kind of tongue in cheek, low brow, but it brings people in. As we're growing, we're working on more, uh, better promotion, and in general, just little things that we couldn't necessarily do at first, because as we were getting, open, our construction started. Whew, literally, we started at the end of 21 initially,
Mhm.
and of course didn't open until October of 23. And so just all that time, and some of that was unfortunately because we were waiting on contractors, not no bad contractor. Even though we didn't go with the lowest or the highest bid, we found somebody in the middle, thinking that, like, okay, they'll be good.
Right.
Well, they took a long time because they didn't do their proper due diligence, and so they're getting ready to turn over the keys after 4 months of the build out. Oh, we didn't do the power upgrade. Well, now you have to go back to the city, get permits, and voila, now you're just sitting there for 8 months. And then you get all that done, and you go through your final process with the Texas Alcoholics Bureau, as well as the Taxation and Trade Bureau. Well, somehow we got put into the bad patch, and
Oh
so
no.
something that should have took about 30 days took another 6 months just to get our
Mhm.
final TTB approval so that we could get our brewers notice. Well, again, you're like, okay, that stinks, but the whole timeline, that's 18 months where you're paying rent, you're paying utilities, stuff that you have to keep up as you're getting into shape to open your doors as soon as you can. But of course, you're thinking about, man, we just had to blow through, about
Right.
150K. That's like all your operating expenses at the time that you're trying to figure out, because you're like, this is for this, and now you're like, okay, well, we gotta pivot, we gotta figure something else out in order to get over that hump. And that's why we work so diligently in our own business. Employees is us, and that's just what we had to do
Mhm.
at the moment, because you look around, no one can no one, if you're not familiar with how the beer game works, would necessarily understand that it's like, you have to have your building, you have to have your equipment, you have to have all your permits and approvals in place before you can sell a drop of whatever it is you made. And realistically, even to produce anything, you have to have all those final permits and approvals in place. And so, of course, to the average Joe, they might look around and say, like, what's the problem? It shouldn't take so long. Not understanding that because it's a controlled substance in essence,
Mhm.
the level of scrutiny you go through is, through the roof. And so it takes time and effort and energy in a different type of way. And so if you get stuck with a bad contractor or an agency that's just taking their sweet time as far as you're concerned, you're still, you're behind the eight ball no matter what you do. And so, like, when we opened, it was kind of like, got our brewers notice on a Wednesday, and it's like, you know what, we're doing a soft opening, Saturday. just to be like, hey, we're here. We still
Right.
hadn't finished the bar. It wasn't fully complete. Another little touches. It wasn't fully complete, but we're like, hey, let's go. And that's what we did.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes me think about, all all the hurdles that you had to go through, and that people are looking to you as an example of being resilient. So, who, if there was anyone that you looked to to kind of help you keep keep yourself motivated, anyone in the craft beer game?
For us, it was probably Michael Ferguson, affectionately known as Mufasa.
Mm-hmm.
For those who are unaware, he was one of the first master craft brewers who happened to be African American in the United States. Period. He was the esteemed Garrett Oliver was on the East Coast. He was on the West Coast in Vegas and the California area as well. I know he got his chopping. I know he got his training. Excuse me, in Vegas. That's where he started. About 4 decades ago now. But we've been fortunate that he's lived in Houston for quite some time. Although we sadly will be losing him soon. He'll be moving to Canada so that his wife can be closer to her dad. He's getting up in age and they want to be closer to help. And being the awesome man that he is, he was like, she sacrificed many moons to be here with me in Texas and in Cali when I was out that way in San Francisco. And he's like, well, it's her turn. So, we've been fortunate that very early on in our craft beer journey, we were able to get, the very no nonsense critiques of what we were doing from him. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if a beer that we presented him, if something was, off, not quite hitting the notes that he felt that it would help, it should. He was very honest. Why are you doing this? You're trying to do something funny. Like why did you put this particular hop with this beer? This is not traditional to the style, etc. Even though we're just like trying to make some different stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
having that type of educator to break down the reasons why you may not want to consider it, for this reason, this reason, this reason, especially if you're trying to make a beer that tastes like this, and this. Well, it was very eye opening, and can't describe how grateful we are to who we affectionately call him Unc, because he provided us almost like a cheat code. So when people tell us, "Hey, man, the stuff that you're making is really, really good," we know very humbly that it probably wouldn't be as good without some of the tutelage. Because very frankly, if it didn't meet the standard, he'll tell you dump it. Get rid of it. And you're
Mm-hmm.
like,
Okay.
dump? Like, no. He's like, no, it's not. You don't want to put this out here because, as the cliche goes, you only have one time to make a first impression. And he said the last thing you want to do is put something out there into the universe, into the world, that's someone's only chance to have what maybe you made, and they leave it saying it was lacking, or even if you might not necessarily like the style. We all have preferences, but you don't want somebody to just come say like it was off. It had an off flavor. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we could tell y'all didn't clean your lines because I'm getting sulfur on my beer, or we can tell you don't know what you're doing because you're saying you're making a lager, but why does it taste like an ale? Or a myriad of things that you could do if you were just ignorant, and he's given us the opportunity to learn on the fly because unfortunately, with us being in our positions and falling in love with beer, in our, I guess, early 30s at the time, mid early 30s at the time, there was not an opportunity to transition to like a civil uh, brewing class.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell you. I can't tell my wife, hey, I'm about to leave for a couple months. I'm gonna be in Chicago.
Right. See,
Good luck
see
with
what
the
I
kids.
see?
You got it. You can't do that, in that regard. So even though we had gotten extremely proficient at home brewing, it is a little slightly different when you go to the professional level. And so to be able to learn, and I give all the props in the world to Miguel because he brews for the culture beer as well as authentic beer. And he's nailed it, and we do what we do to support, of course. If stuff needs cellaring, stuff needs kegging, we all help to chip in to make sure that, just all that stress is not on him all the time, because, the making of it is no small feat.
Mm,
But we're extremely proud of him. I couldn't be in bed with the, so to speak, with a better business partner, because he's taking that task on, and from what we hear and what types of reviews that we receive, we know that at minimum we're making beer that people seem to really, really enjoy.
that's awesome. That's great. I love that. I love knowing. Shout out to Miguel for being that gateway to that delicious beer and for the culture. And what was the other brewery name again?
Ovenik,
Oh, Vinny.
Ovenik Brewing.
Oh,
Yes,
Vinny. Okay.
it's a three-eyed cat of grain and mischief, I believe. It's Slavic, and the gist is, if you it's a cat it'll raid your grain barn, and if you don't leave food items like pancakes and beer, it'll burn your barn down. And so this is one of the ways to appease it.
That's awesome. I do like pancakes and beer. That sounds great. That sounds wonderful.
Exactly.
Well, Carl, I had an amazing time talking to you. This was really great. I love catching up and learn and hearing
Likewise.
more about for the culture and what y'all are doing in Houston. Um,
Likewise.
it's been a while, so I need to make my way down there. But traveling is just like, oh my gosh, I just this year is a wash for me. I'm gonna have to make my do a being black and craft tour maybe in 2026. Go to make
But
my
we'll
way.
we'll love to see you when you do.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. Significantly, we appreciate you reaching out, because admittedly, I used to love the clubhouse Mondays, and of course, as we ramped up, I got so busy that for a time, it was about 2 months ago. I was actually looking to see if I could find replays, and I meant to reach out, and I just simply forgot. And I guess God knew I was thinking about you, because literally a couple of days later, that's when you reached out, like, "Hey, do you have some dates, available that maybe we can, get together?" Because, like I said, that this is no small feat. I encourage people, like, definitely follow your dreams. If you love beer, you love craft beer, and you're about that life, go for it. But I'll be the first to acknowledge we didn't do this because it was easy, but because we thought it'd be easy. And it is definitely a challenge. It is, and I say that we have a world of fun. We enjoy connecting with customers and people, and making friendships. I can't just tell you how many people I've gotten to know over this, last, 21, 22 months, that legit might be lifelong friends. And, like, you learn people's life stories. We've had a couple of cancer survivors uh,
Mm.
that have come in. We have people who, like baby showers, you get to meet your babies, graduations, and they keep you up to date with these things. And I just, that is an aspect I admittedly would have never considered prior, to opening our doors, but
Mhm.
it's happened. And that's what we really, really love about being our little bit of the community, and, pulling those people in and just trying to continue to make that family through beer. Because at the end of the day, that's what For The Culture is. I know it's hitting, but the beauty of our name is that it's for any culture. It's for the culture. What beer culture? It's for the African American culture. It's for the Hispanic culture. It's whatever you want to make it, because that's all our goal is, to bring everybody together. Like many of our craft beer contemporaries, that look like us. That's all their goal is, to let people know, like, hey, we can enjoy beer too. It's not just for a specific demographic, but also in that we're extremely inclusive. We want everybody just to see our vision and enjoy our beer, and, let us know what you think.
Awesome. Well, I think you said it perfectly. So you just hold on for a second and let me go ahead and sign off. But thank you again, everyone, for tuning in to Being Black and Craft, where we don't apologize for recognizing our influence on craft beer. And we will see you next week. August is going to be amazing. We're ending July, but August is going to be I have a pack full of people, pack full of people. So y'all just stay tuned for sure.
This summer, August 7th, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., Burrow and Flow is taking over the Three Rivers with Burrow and Flow. You pay for your ticket, you get free beer, free liquor, free cider, and free wine the entire boat ride. Yes, the entire boat ride. It's going to be some great vibes, and we're going to be on the legendary Gateway Clipper. They got DJ Big Phil on the ones and twos. They have a live band, Nashville. It's going to be cracking. It's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of people from OT coming to the Berg for Burrow and Flow, and they'll be on this boat ride. Grab your tickets now. They're $80 in advance, $100 at the door. Hit up barrowandflow.com. That's where you buy your tickets at. Let's get this boat ride cracking. We're going to be out on the Three Rivers, jamming, getting it smacking.